welcome to the Sacred Femme Alchemy Podcast, a podcast to help you on your sacred feminine journey towards self-love and healing. I'm your host, Lisa Mae Francisco, a sacred feminine guide and mentor. In the podcast, we'll dive deep on how to heal your core wounds, reclaim your feminine power, and liberate your truth so you can be your wild, authentic self. Thanks so much for listening. I'm super excited that you're here. Hey everybody, super excited that you're here. I'm still on the train of recording these, so it's always super fun just popping up here on video. And today I wanted to talk about something that has been coming up in my life of being initiated by the Divine Mother into redirecting this new path that I'm on in my business. And I wanted to start it off with this oracle card from the Kim Krans deck, the Archetypes, and I'm going to read about the mother. And if you don't have this deck, it's absolutely beautiful. I got it a couple years ago, and it took a while for me to build a relationship with it. And, the first set of oracle cards that I ever had was from Kim Krans. It was an animal spirit deck gifted for my birthday. And it was a practice that I had never been really into. I was going to, I had gone to different workshops and different retreats, but something was so special about this retreat because it was my 31st birthday. And I remember wanting to move to California, and then such magical things were happening at that time. I was living in New York, and I got accepted to business school, and that led me to California. And so that spirit deck actually holds very, very special memories in my heart. And if you're new to using oracle cards or using cards as a form of divination to connect to spirit, to source, not in a sense of receiving, foretelling the future in a sense. I don't use cards as a way of like psychic mediumship. It's more about for me to really understand what is going on in my internal realm. And if you start to notice, the more you use the cards, the more you start to have a relationship with it, and the better you're able to understand what's going on into your internal environment, your internal world. And so it's this practice of building a muscle. It's not calling, evil spirits or anything like that. It's to me, I find it's like this subtle energy that wants to be invited in, that allows you to go deeper and use the imagery and the photos to really stir up and see what are the mental images that are coming in your mind. Because ultimately the way that we understand the subconscious is through symbolism and imagery. And so when you have a certain card that you're drawn to, it's always important to see the message and see, does it land? Does it sit with me? And so, using Kim Krans' animal spirit deck, I felt it allowed me to build a really innocent, pure relationship with it, because it was just, oh, here's an animal, and what does that mean? And then I kind of graduated more towards tarot and looking at what do these cards mean, because I was working with a mentor at the time, and she was really into tarot. So, she introduced me to using it because I was so scared of it. I thought it was like all this psychic medium stuff, and it just wasn't for me, or calling bad spirits. But then I started to develop this pure relationship with it of, what is it that I want to know about myself? And it's actually, you can do archetypal tarot, which is from, Carl Jung. There are many books written about it. And it's basically looking at all of the cards, the major arcana, the minor arcana, to see the archetypes, the symbolism, the imagery. And so it's like going to a museum and thinking, how am I interpreting this card? Obviously, there is there's definitions to what certain cards mean and certain themes. But the beautiful thing is that there's so many iterations of the universal general symbolism of it. And so you are able to look at different cards from different cultures, from different times. And I have this book from Taschen that is called The Book of Tarot. And so it actually documents throughout history the different cultures and how tarot has evolved and the universal meaning behind everything. So it's it's beautiful. It's actually, a mirror to what archetypes are, which are, these defined characters that transcend times, timelines, cultures, languages. Everyone knows the jock, everyone knows maiden, mother, crone. So it's a really beautiful way to build a connection with yourself and see what's going on. And so I got the Kim Krantz Archetypes book, and I remember first working with it, and I got a card and I just said, I'm not feeling it. I don't really like it. And then I stopped. And I guess it's, when you're ready to use a card, then that's when it starts resonating, or a deck. And I haven't gotten her alchemy deck because I feel like I still need to sit with this guidebook, with this deck. There's so many different cards to it that I still haven't even fully wrapped my head around and really embodied. And wisdom comes with knowledge and experience, and so the knowledge from that is just really thinking, okay, what's happening here, what is coming through. And so I wanted to start off that was like a very long ass intro. I just got so excited about archetypes and divination and oracle cards. And so I wanted to start off this episode with this beautiful card, and it's the Mother. And it's actually the first card in the deck. And so it says the Mother, the great mother, the feminine, the source. We begin our archetypal story with a mother's love. Through her sensual, fertile, and life-giving energy, all creation takes form. Regardless of our birth story, each of our hearts beat for the first time in the warm womb of the mother, where she offered resources from her body for the building of our own. Ugh, I just got chills reading that. Yet her tale is not so simple. As the mother, especially on the earthly plane, the mother contains both light and dark aspects of the feminine. With the best of intentions, the mother wraps her loving arms around her creations and begins to grip what she meant to set free. The mother both nurtures and prohibits growth. She gives yet clings. She creates yet restricts. Amid this complex energy, the mother holds the key to the eternal challenge of love. Notice how the mother archetype is expressed in nature. This is perhaps the most balanced and benevolent form of the mother's grace. The mother is part of the trifecta, maiden, mother, and crone. Because of the relationship between them, take special note when these archetypes show up in your life. And so when she is in light, she's glowing, she's generative, she's creative, she's nurturing. And when she's in her shadow side, she's dim, exhausted, controlling, limiting. So beautiful. And I love that it says that it contains the both aspects of the light and dark aspects of the feminine. And it's very interesting because when I first got into the space of working with the sacred feminine journey and just tapping more into the feminine essence of, being intuitive, expressive, being, feeling, understanding the relationship of the inner feminine and, masculine side, I was not initiated by sexuality. That's common in this space. I see it in this space a lot where, women were, and that's a part of my story too, but it's not the focal point. where sexual trauma has occurred and women are reclaiming their sensuality. And that is just so beautiful. It's so beautiful. But when it really started happening was, I mentioned it in the previous episode of, my experiences of being called by Shakti and being adverse to being in this space. And for me, it was initiation by the ultimate mother, right? The mother has many faces. I first learned about the mother through Mother Mary. I grew up Catholic. I'm non-practicing, but I, love certain rituals. Jesus lover, Mary Magdalene, Mother Mary, all of that stuff. And when I think about how it all started and what I experienced in my tantric yoga training, I didn't know until retrospect that the mother was behind the scenes. And I'm referring to the mother as the overarching mother, right? The expression, the expression of who she is in many different forms, but she came to me through Shakti. And I felt, we were working with the Mahavidyas. We were working with the Tridevis, which are the three goddesses of the Hindu religion. And, we're learning about them, the philosophy, the theory, and we did a yantra with Lakshmi. And it was beautiful to pray to these deities and know that we could invoke them with sacred geometry and do japa meditation in our sadhana and realize that the auspicious qualities that we saw in these deities and in their stories were mirrored to us. And so I found it really, really, really interesting because on the other side of it, there was, an opportunity to see the mother archetype in real form. And I remember, our teacher, I have so much respect for her and she's amazing. And one of the things that she said on the very first day was, I'm not perfect. And there will be times when you might see me a little upset when I'm taking care of logistics, but I'm all about transparency. I'm not going to hide from you what's going on because eventually you might want to lead your own retreats and this is what it's like and the business side of it and all this stuff. And that's what I loved. She didn't try to hide behind anything. And she was very real. And this training was one of the hardest trainings I've done. And I thought, well, should I have just gone and done one of those like Bali yoga teacher trainings? And it's interesting because no one really talks about it. They just put up their certificate and they're like, yeah, I'm a yoga teacher. But the process of actually going through it, and I mean, you are really in the visceral process of becoming a yogini, of becoming a yogi. And it requires a lot of tapas, which is fire and discipline to carry out these things that you're asked to do. And there were many times where I thought, I mean, I remember having one-on-one with her and I just said, I don't know if I'm going to teach Tantra. I don't know. This is unexpected. I thought it was Neo-Tantra. I thought we were going to do, fun sacred sexuality stuff and Shakti dancing and that's a one part. That's like the love and the light and that expression. But in order to get there, you need to have gone through the journey. So when I see women that are so expressive, that are in their feminine energy. They didn't just get there. It was the journey and that was the process, that alchemy that polished them, the pressure that they felt to become those diamonds. Any person standing in front of you and you think that that's the end result, or that they came out of the womb, as the way they are. It's no, they've all had their each unique journey. So never ever compare someone's outsides to their insides, because you really don't know their story. And so I just remember thinking, wow, everyone just gets yoga certificates or their yoga teacher training, it's 200 hours, whatever. People are having so much fun. They're posting all the good stuff. But there were many times when, my one-on-one, I told her, I was like, I just don't know if this is for me. It just reminded me so much of religion. It was like too serious and all this stuff. And the interesting thing, as I'm saying this, and, I in my opinion, I believe that higher perspective usually comes from reflection and in retrospective. It's the lightness and the darkness. And it's that totality, and it's that perspective. And it's embracing all of that. It's embracing everything. And to me, that's what Tantra is. It's just totality of everything, divinity and everything. And so, having this experience, really questioning, realizing, oh, maybe I should have done more research. I didn't have a yoga practice, and it was just super hard for me. And I remember I would get upset with our asana teacher, and I would just say, oh, well, she's just a bad teacher. Externally projecting my frustrations out on other people instead of taking ownership and accountability of, maybe it's because you didn't have a good practice. That's why you're not vibing, because if you did, then maybe the asana class would be easy for you. And it's so interesting to have that perspective. And so there are many times where I felt challenged and was resisting it, and I couldn't wait to leave, and I would count down. But then other times it would be filled with such grace as well. And then I would feel the spirit of the mother come, and Shakti and the goddess, and I'd be like, oh, this is why I'm here. And it's so funny because I felt the call to do this training, and I was so excited, but I didn't know what the fuck I was getting into. And, there were times when our teacher was very fierce, but she was also very loving. And I didn't find that loving perspective until it was the very end, when, we would do circles and we got to know each other and, share just really raw, vulnerable truths about ourselves and what was going on outside of the yoga training. And seeing this whole perspective created so much beauty. There's so much beauty in the tapestry of being able to see the threads connect between different stories and who we are and what makes us who we are. And seeing that, and I wrote that in our goodbye card to her, I said, there were many things that I questioned and why you were doing the things you were doing, but you really taught me and showed me the archetype of a woman, of a mother who's very fierce, but also loving. And I know now why you do the things you do. So thank you. And it felt so good being able to have that perspective. And that was the first time that I actually experienced that, of understanding this fierceness, being able to hold the dark and the light aspects, right? That sometimes discipline from a mother is not understood by a child, especially as a teenager. It's fuck you, mom. I hate you. Especially teenage daughters. Like, they do not like their moms. And if you do, and you're lucky, I want to know what you're doing. You could probably teach the rest of us. And so it made me have compassion. And I just thought, wow, I felt humbled, very, very humbled to have that experience, and so grateful. In the end, it was very light. And it's so interesting because I had this dream recently where, I had my last circle and I was studying the Queen of Inanna and her goddess story. and how she goes to the underworld to meet her sister. And, as she's going and making her descent into the underworld, she has to go through 7 gates that were bolted by her sister. And at each of the gates, she has to lose and relinquish a part of herself, whether it's jewelry, whether it's, clothing items, whether it's her crown, and, in the very, very last gate before she enters into the underworld, she has to take off her royal robe. And it's funny because at each gate, she's, I'm here, I want to go to the underworld. And eventually you see, she's like, I don't know why I'm doing this. She starts to question. And it paralleled my experience. I'm so excited to do this training. Also, I'm like, oh my God, why am I here? Why did I do this? Da, 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 and each of the gates and questioning. And I sat, and, before she goes into the underworld, she loses her robe, or she has to give up her royal robe, which is symbolic of, her being completely naked. When you're descending into the underworld, when you're descending to the goddess in the shadow, you are taking off everything, your identity, everything of who you are. And then, Inanna was put on the hook by her sister. She was turned into a corpse, and she was put on a meat hook for 3 days. And that was the integration process. That was the void that was integral to being able to integrate everything that had happened at those 7 gates, which are, which resembles the chakras. And so, before she's able to ascend, she has to give up something, right? Someone has to take her place, and it ends up becoming her husband. But the beauty of that story is it's not necessarily her sister she's meeting, it's her meeting herself. It's her meeting herself as queen of the underworld. And as she ascends, she's taking that part of herself with her. And she's going up at each of these gates again and assessing, do I need to take that thing that I relinquished with me up there? And it's all about rewriting, reconditioning, repatterning, rewiring all the stories that we thought that we needed to identify who we are in this world. And I had this dream that my teacher was wearing black. And when I woke up, I had this dream about her, and we were in yoga training and all that stuff. And when I woke up, I realized that experience I had was the goddess of Queen Inanna, being called to go into the underworld, having this woman and this mother initiate me, having her be queen of the underworld and doing something and integrating it, being in the void of not being able to express how is Tantra being, embedded and integrated into my business, and, staying there in that void, even though I wanted to express, but I couldn't express. I felt like a corpse and very impatient because I just wanted to create. And I knew that I was on the precipice of creating, but I had to stay there. I had to stay in the dark. And then eventually coming up, and I'm just like, wow, I feel like my channels are like fucking blasted open, and that I just can't stop wanting to express. And I feel like I wish that there were more days in the days within the days. So every day I can just share and push out something. But then again, we're time isn't linear. It's infinite timelines happening all at once. And so it only happened in retrospect that I had that perspective, and that was so beautiful. And the interesting thing is, when I came back to the States, I had to babysit my nephew. And it was the first time, I had seen him in a while, in a couple months. So it was just me and my mom. I got to spend time with my mom, and I got to tell her about my yoga training. I got to talk to her about it. And it was just mother-daughter time. And it was beautiful. We were taking care of my nephew, and oh my gosh, there are so many things that he teaches me. There are so many things that he teaches me, even though I'm not a parent, and I feel like I'm learning parental lessons, mother lessons. And so I just remember being with my mom, and we were having fun together. We were laughing together. We were taking care of my nephew together, both of my nephews together. One is going to be 4, and the other one is 1. And it was so beautiful spending time with her, having mother-daughter time. And a couple years ago, I had the first draft of my, memoir slash like inner child book that I was writing. And I was working with a mentor, a developmental mentor. And she had asked me, how come you don't mention any stories about your mom? And I told her, I said, well, I don't really have any issues with her with inner child stuff. It was mainly my dad. And, the challenges with my mom didn't arise until I started living with her as an adult. And so, sure, I would live with both of my parents, but then, I would get memories and flashbacks, and feeling a certain way. And, it stemmed from my dad. And at that point, I was really, really working on healing my inner masculine, a relationship to the masculine, looking at it in the perspective and the framework of my relationship to my father. And, my mom and I, we would get in fights. We would get in fights and we wouldn't talk to each other. And, I learned different things about her from a different perspective. And it was really, really interesting. It was really interesting. I taught them boundaries. They hate that fucking word. And I experienced that, the restriction, the suffocation, her being, wanting to know every single detail. But myself wanting to have individuation, and her feeling like she had given everything. So why couldn't I love her in the same of giving her all of me? And that is something that I find that I can't fully understand because I am not a mother. And so that perspective, that sort of reckoning started to turn the hamster wheels in my head of the idea of what was it like to be a mother. And I'll have instances when I'm with my nephew and I'm trying to discipline him, but I know that what I'm saying is it's on the line of learning to be careful. So I see my sister doing gentle parenting, and she's fucking best mom, hands down. I adore her. I think she's an amazing mother. And, I'll notice when I'll try to discipline my nephew, he doesn't understand. I think there's all this fucking jargon about, attachments, systems and theories and blah, blah, blah. And it happens when you're 0 to 3. And, your parents, they sucked at being parents and they fucked up. There's all this fucking bullshit about that. Granted, there is a place and time for it, right? But the thing that I don't see, and someone help me out here if there is type of, parenting about this, and send it to me, please. But I don't see parenting about how to create secure children. It's all about adults trying to reparent themselves who have insecure attachment, avoid insecure, or, whatever that isn't secure attachment style. And there isn't actually in real time how to teach a child these secure coping mechanisms. But at the same time, they don't have the cognitive capability to understand, oh, you're feeling this way, you're feeling that. When you're around a kid that's 0 to 3 years old, they are just that full expression of that emotion. And there is no way of calming them down, especially when they have a tantrum. There's literally, their face is on fire. I see fire when they're pissed off, and it's, oh my God. Sometimes I'm scared of my nephew. He can be fucking scary. And my sister does such a good job at maintaining her voice. And, when you discipline a child and you start to see that they get scared if you raise your voice, or if you leave them, it's, oh my God, it means abandonment if I'm leaving them, because they don't know how to handle their fucking feelings. They don't know. Leave a child in a room and they have no idea what's going on because their fucking nervous system can't handle that shit. You can't just say, oh, meditate. Focus your consciousness on the heart. That doesn't work for a fucking 3-year-old. I'm sorry. that stuff just doesn't get learned until you're older, but then your attachment system's already created when you're 3. Like there's this mismatch there. And so I had these questions of, when I was disciplining my nephew, I noticed that he got scared of me. And I was like, fuck, I don't ever want to make him feel scared, or I don't ever want him to think I am bad versus what I did is bad. And when you're trying to explain that to a child that young, they can't comprehend that. And that's where the feelings of unworthiness, unlovableness, I want to disappear, that's when they start to form and create this mask that we carry on when we're older. And so I just started seeing more and more things, and I just felt so grateful for my mother, of how she raised both my sister and I. And she was just this beautiful respite for me of, this reservoir of safety when I was a kid. And she was very loving. And I remember her playing with me. I remember her dressing me. And, she let me watch Disney Ariel Little Mermaid, that movie, all the time, even though I watched it so many times. And so it made me have this higher perspective, this higher consciousness of, wow, I don't know shit about being a parent. And so, of course there are things that are imperfect, but I finally understood. And it's almost like the dismantling of this parental theory of wanting people to be perfect. And, I see a lot of people blame their parents, and this whole perspective of, well, they did the best they could. And I was angry. I was angry. You can see all my, that's why I got into inner child work, because I was like, okay, you didn't have great parents, you can be your own parents. And then I heard just all this trauma, and I was like, am I helping or am I hurting? Am I recreating the story? Like, how can I make people feel empowered? How can I make my clients feel empowered? Because you're visiting a lot of this stuff makes it more alive. And at the end of the day, when you are a parent, that's when you truly understand. And sometimes, I heard this before from someone. I wish I was a parent first before I was a child, and I had such compassion. And that was just only one day with my mom. That was just that was just a weekend when I was with my mom and we were doing that together. And, I was just laughing with her. And, at the end of the day, like, they did great, because look at me. I look at myself as a testament. I look about the journey that I've been on. I look at the things that I've went through, the hardships, the challenges, and how I've been able to come out to the other side. I look at my own personal success, of my own personal markers of success, where I've been led to, my personal development, what I value, how I uphold myself, how I speak to people, how I speak kindly to myself, like all of these things. And I'm like, they did great then. Like, they did great. And so it really healed my perspective. And I was just so not expecting that at all. I was not expecting that at all. And I remember that night leaving and going back to my house. It was very exhausting. I'd slept over, and it was so cute. I slept with my little nephew in the bed. And I had a dream. I had a dream about my mom in there. And I had a dream about a mentor of mine who was a mother figure to me. And she and I are not as close anymore. We had a falling out. And, it was around the idea of giving. And this mom, this well of giving as a mother, right? And as women, what this means. And I read it in a book somewhere. I read it online somewhere. I can't remember. But it's a saying that I think it's a man will get to know himself by, spending time with himself or going deeper with himself. But a woman will know herself when she understands another person. So it's this idea of putting yourself last, of overgiving, that we were nurtured to give more to others rather than think about ourselves. When people are coming over, it's like being the hostess. Oh, do you want this? You want that? Nurturing, caring, all of that stuff. And it just, it just really, I wanted to take. I wanted to take. And my mentor at the time, we had worked together for so many years, like 10 years at that point, 10 years, yeah. And our relationship had morphed, and we weren't doing work as much anymore, but we were just friends, and we still had that special connection. And she was dealing with stuff and I was dealing with stuff, and there was like jealousy, and I realized I couldn't be around her. And in my dream, I was having an issue, and she appeared in my dream, and she said something to me because she was the only person that I wanted to talk to that I knew could understand me. And she was the first mother figure that I had. And I don't remember what she said to me in the dream, but what I said to her was, how do you always know the right things to say to pierce right through my heart? And that shows you how special she is to me, how impactful our relationship was. And in that moment of being with my mother, in that moment of, babysitting my nephew, it was healing the mother wound. And it was so beautiful because I saw my mom in a different way. I saw her full circle. And it helped me realize my relationship with my mentor, my previous mentor before, who I wasn't talking to. And I was like, wow, I get it now. I had forgiven her in my dream. And I woke up and I just had this really strong desire to talk to her. And, I had my experiences of overgiving in, I want to say it was during early summer. I had been working with so many clients, and I feel so grateful for that. But I overbooked myself. It was a lot. I just left my job. I wanted to make money, and I was having a lot of client calls, trying to manage different clients in between, doing workshops. It's like I wanted to do everything to expedite success or money. And my partner had surgery. And I was also only seeing my therapist once a month, who is also, a mother figure to me. And, I had different insurance, so I didn't, I couldn't afford to pay her out of pocket. The life of being an entrepreneur, paying for your own insurance. That's how the corporate companies get you, golden handcuffs. And my partner, he had surgery. And, I had to take care of him. But I was too burnt out. I was giving to clients, and I was not giving to myself. I was giving I just didn't have a full cup. And he called me out and he said, I don't like that you make me feel like a nuisance. And that's honestly how I felt. I felt great. Now I have to take care of this person. I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and sometimes that's how moms feel. Sometimes, their partner will feel neglected when they are the primary caretaker, when their partner wants to have sex. And it's really, I don't feel hot right now. And sometimes a partner, will feel neglected. And yeah, it was hard. It was very, very hard, and it was difficult, and it was challenging. And it was this wake up moment of, I am not taking care of myself. I need to do something that takes care of myself, that takes care of me. And so I ended up that was just a turning point for me. I never, ever, ever wanted to make my partner feel that way again. I never want to make my children feel that way again. And I said, like, I have got to find another solution. My mental health is not well. And I told him that multiple times. I was like, I feel it. My mental health is not well. Like, I don't know what to do. Like, I wasn't going to acupuncture as much because I couldn't afford it. Like, all these things. Because insurance I had didn't cover it. And, and the last company I worked for was like the best benefits you could ever have. It was crazy. And, I didn't fully realize it until I left. And all these older people at work would always tell me that I'm never leaving. The benefits are amazing. And yeah, so I was like roughing it for a while, cutting and budgeting, the wellness account, all that stuff. And so I realized, okay, I need to create a plan. I don't want to emotionally feel like this. I don't want my partners to feel like this. I don't want my future children to feel like this. I need to figure it out now. And so I ended up, increasing I was like, I have to figure it out. So I ended up increasing my availability and seeing my therapist twice a month. Then I started going to acupuncture once a month and, reducing clients and figuring out, okay, what is my limit? And now it's, five clients. And that was such a hard lesson. But in that lesson, I understood the perspective of the mother who feels like she's overgiving. And the last thing she wants to do is give more because she's left dry to the bone. And so, these lessons that I was getting of feeling like I was the mother, even though I didn't have quote unquote children, these experiences and then I ended up also babysitting, my sister. She was alone in the house. Her husband was traveling for work. And so I came and I helped her with 2 of her kids for a whole week. That was a whole fucking initiation in itself. That was crazy. It was so crazy. And I remember being so in awe of her, and I dropped them off at school with her. I changed their diapers. I play with them. Talked to them, like all these things. And I really got to see what it was like to be a mom in her life. And I thought, oh my God, I really don't. I was like, this is crazy. This is crazy. And I can't believe you do this every day and you're a working parent. And, God bless the working parents. Honestly, God bless. I feel like our corporate system is not built to support parents. And now you're adding like go to work or, in person, and you have calls that are so early in the morning, but then that's the time when the child goes to childcare. And what if you don't have a partner? What if you're a single parent? Then who's going to drop off the kid? And then all of a sudden you're in your one-on-one with your boss and they're like, well, you're not really showing up or showing interest or going above and beyond. It's like, well, I got fucking kids. Like, it's so fucking rigged. It's so unfair. And so, yeah, I just remember my sister had to be home at a certain time and do everything because she had to clock in. I just thought, wow, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that I have a job where I can be very flexible and I can help her and I can be there and I can support her and she has community. And, it really helped deepened my perspective of what it was like to be a parent, what it was like to be a parent for my parents and how they did and how my mom did. And I just had even more heartfelt compassion, more so. And I remember writing in my notebook, in my last job, we'd always ask the customers, what keeps you up at night, to understand their pain points so we could create a product that actually addressed that so we could make the product better for them. And what kept me up at night was questions about being a mom. Like, how do you raise a kid and make them not feel like they're a bad kid when you're trying to discipline them? How do you keep a relationship alive when you're tired and you have these two children that you're trying to develop into human beings, and you're trying to raise them in a way that's ethical with integrity. And how do you not fuck them up, right? So that when they do grow up, they have a relationship with you and they can talk to you. The balance of being their friend, but then also being a parent. The idea of giving yourself compassion when you feel like you're not doing enough. The anxiety about the kid, and it weighed very heavy on my shoulders. And it was interesting that I was writing this stuff down. I remember very clearly I woke up and I was just noticing so many things, and my mind was just turning. And I said, this is interesting. I wonder how this weaves into my business, And then I had a sales call. With a woman who wanted to talk about her relationship to her daughter. And, I had so much compassion for her. And I remember at the end of the call thinking, wow, I never truly fully understand the depth of like where the parental relationship can go, especially with the mother and the daughter. And really feeling it and sitting with it, and then deciding, I only want to help maidens. I want to help maidens on their journey to becoming the mother. And it's sort of where I've been in, the last decade, right? The maturation of my maiden phase. And being initiated and having these different experiences as initiation into wanting to become a mother. And I mentioned in a couple of episodes it's my circle episode, I think it's 2 episodes ago, where I was adverse to having a daughter because it's so complicated raising a female. It's so complicated raising a woman, and what that emotionally means and physically means and all of these things. And so it was the first time where I started to get all of these different questions, and I started to wonder, what is it like to be a mom? I'm seeing all of these challenges. I want to help women. And it became very clear to me, like crystal. It was crystallized for me. That declaration of, no, I want to help women. It's important that I help women. And, it was I think my sadhana was working with Bhairavi. She's one of the goddesses, Mahavidya. And I just remember feeling so connected to that energy, that mother energy, and asking for her help in removing anything from my life that wasn't deepening my life purpose. And I just remember knowing when I came back, oh yeah, this is what I want to do. And then I ended up reading the Heroine's Journey during that week. And then I said, this is it. This is it. This is what I want to do. It's all about the woman's journey, the descent from her head into her heart, the descent from the masculine, which is very cerebral, to her heart, which is the feminine, and the challenges that come up along the way. How sometimes there's trauma in her sexual story with her body not feeling safe. There's trauma with her own mother, the denial of those traits in the woman, wanting to identify with the masculine, the father, acceptance, approval. And in the book, they call it father's daughter, also dutiful daughter. And that's where we start to contort ourselves to be loved. And, it all started to come together, but it was through the lens of the feminine. when I was doing this work, bits and pieces, I was doing it through, inner child work, but it just deepened so much. And that's how it fully came to be, this thing of, this is what I want to go after. This is what I want to do. And I want to work with the goddess. I want to work with you, the ultimate mother. I want to work with your many different faces and different cultures and myths and stories and poems, characters in movies. And, how can we reclaim those dark and light aspects of us, knowing that even the dark aspects, like if you think about it, look at Maleficent. She's a mother figure, and that's why I'm getting so much into the interpretation of these stories and being able to teach people about them in a way where they can understand and stir and evoke something in them, where they can find meaning in their life and deepen their experience of their own journey of coming back to themselves as a feminine woman, knowing that it's not just only the feminine traits, but it's also integrating those darker aspects of ourselves. And how do we become whole, and how do we grant each other compassion and kindness and grace as we're going on this journey. And so it's this beautiful, beautiful process of how everything has kind of just come together. And I feel like in a way I'm being more and more initiated into the mother. And today I was sitting in breakfast and I was eating alone. I was looking outside and it just hit me. I said, wow, we're 3 generations. I'm the maiden right now. My sister's the mother and my mom is the crone. And I thought that was really fucking cool. And I felt so grateful. And I really felt that the goddess, the mother, the Shakti, source, spirit, allowed me to see that, really wove her hand in that. And that's the deeper way, and I feel like for the first time I'm co-creating with a collective. Whereas before it was, what are the offerings I have? Falling in love with the offerings rather than falling in love with the problem. And, when I talk to different people, when I hear the issues and challenges they have of reclaiming their femininity, what does it mean? How did it get them to the place where they felt they very much identified with masculinity? And it was always around work, always doing, our whole patriarchal society is just built around that. And, not allowing women to rest when they have their moon or when they're pregnant. It's just, I don't know how pregnant women show up at work when they don't feel like, what the fuck? Like, you should get 3 years off, honestly. The 9 months you're pregnant, a year afterwards. So maybe 2 years off. Yeah, I honestly do. I don't know. Maybe my partner and I will move to Denmark after all. They have great fucking benefits there. It's insane. You have a mommy group, you have free breathing classes. Everything is free there. Childcare is free. You get off at 4. You're not expected to log on. It's literally utopia. That is why people are the happiest in the world over there. It's because their government and society is like fucking taken care of. It's very privileged, and so they don't have to worry about those things and feel like they're hustling all the time. But yeah, even when you're older, you get a nurse that comes to your house and that is free. I mean, it's not free because it's built in taxes, but that's how the government takes care of you. It's the fact that you give money to the government and you actually see where it fucking goes. Okay, that was my little rant. But it's just being able to see it from this altitude and have a different perspective has just, made me realize, okay, I'm ready to succumb. I'm ready to surrender. And I know that I'm meant to do this work. I know that I'm meant here to help other women. I know that I want to help women reclaim their feminine essence, their identity, and I'm fully embracing it. And so it's really beautiful to talk to different people and see their challenges of, When did they lose that feminine parts of themselves? And it did happen when they were younger in order to feel accepted. Or maybe they had sexual trauma and they learned that sexuality was bad because they didn't want to bring any attention to them. Or maybe they saw the way their father looked at women. Or maybe they saw the way their father treated, their mom. And so it's always being able to look at everything that happened in your life as a mirror to really allow you to see, where did I learn to relinquish these parts of myself? And how do I reclaim it in a way that's healthy and fun and loving to me? And the way is through the descent to the goddess. It's where you get to really explore. It's where you get to use your voice. It's where you get to feel safe in your sensuality. You feel safe in your body. And it's a really, really beautiful, beautiful and privilege to walk this path with clients. And I've seen the miraculous change of people being able to set boundaries, state their needs, use their voice, and reclaim that. Feel safe in their bodies, reclaim different relationships and treat themselves differently and have different perspectives and understand what it means to integrate both the masculine and feminine sides with themselves. And so it's just so beautiful, this journey that we're on, being able to accept all parts of ourselves. And it's something that I'm so passionate about. And, being able to truly co-create with the mother, with the goddess, with Shakti, and see how it shows up in my life. And I feel like I'm getting crumbs little by little of, things that my soul left for me, of, this is the way. And I truly feel it right now. And I did my circle and it felt so good to do my circle around Queen Anana and that story. And one of my mentors, she attended and she has known me since 2018. And, she saw me in a corporate job. She saw me in different relationships. And she reflected back to me, similar to the lunar consciousness when we reflect, because it is reflecting the illumination of the sun, that she said, you seem very comfortable in what you're doing as a woman who's completely owning it and in her path. And I feel it. Like, I feel it so much. I feel it like a fire. I feel like I'm a scholar and I want to learn more. And I'm so thirsty for knowledge. I'm so thirsty of, being able to learn more about, this relationship to women, to her, to devote my life to her and to help the collective heal in this way. And nothing gives me more gratitude than that. And so I will end it there. I have 2 spots left for one-on-one coaching. I just want to put a plug in for that. And, it would be an honor to be a guide to you on your own sacred feminine journey and helping you heal any of the blocks, the wounds, the conditioning, the programming that prevented you from stepping into your feminine essence, that prevented you from tapping in, being intuitive, feeling, being emotional. And, these are your greatest gifts, being able to be expressive, but it doesn't also mean just only being soft, or graceful. It means having expression as well, and that life force in you, passion, nurturing and fierce. And, it's really, really beautiful. And so thank you for joining. Thank you for listening. This was a long one. Had no idea where it was going, but I feel like I am complete. All right. I will catch you on the next episode. Bye.